This
Recording. Thank you,
conference
Ari.
will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're talking about the 10 federal home and community-based requirements. Again, I'll just reiterate, uh, numbers 1 through 5 pertain to all vendors who are under home and community-based requirements. 6 through 9 are residential, and 10 is for everyone. The first one is federal requirement number 1, access to the community. The setting service is integrated in and supports full access to the greater community, including opportunities to seek employment and work in competitive integrated settings. Um, oh, could you please turn off your mic? Um, Okay, I got it. Okay, so the setting and service is integrated in and supports full access to the greater community. Persons can use the whole community, including opportunities to seek employment and work in competitive integrated settings. Again, not all clients are going to be either wanting to work or at this point have the service and supports necessary to make it so that they can be successfully employed. So it's a goal to get everyone to work if and they choose and if the right environment is available to them. Engage in community life, control personal resources, money, their cell phone, other things that are of theirs, and receive services in the community to the same degree and access as individuals not receiving regional center services. So if a typical individual in the community has access to something, or the individuals that we serve should have access to that something. As part of their plan of service, do individuals have the opportunity to participate in individual and group outings and activities in the community at the frequency and of the amount of time desired by the individual? So if I'm an individual and I want more activity, I should be able to have that. If I'm someone who is more of an introvert and does not want a great deal of activity, I shouldn't be made to go on activities because as a provider, I believe that I'm supposed to take you out and do these things. You have choices too. So the amount of time you spend out and about is up to you as the individual client. Do the opportunity for community outings and activities, including meaningful interaction with individuals not receiving regional center services, not including paid staff or volunteers. This is important. Are our clients interacting with people in the general community? I go to the store. I talk to the clerk. Sometimes uh, another customer. I was at Lowe's the other day, and I was looking for a part, and I was, sort of comparing, and some guy was near me. Started talking to me and shared his thoughts about what was the best product to purchase and stuff. So I was talking to somebody in the general community. That do our clients have the opportunity to do that? Okay, next slide. If an individual wants to seek paid employment, do they have the access to competitive integrated employment opportunities? And again, it's not only do they have access, but do they have the supports necessary? So what's it going to take to get this person into community employment? And sometimes, depending on the needs of the individual planning that goes into creating the environment that will work for them in an employment setting may take a lot of support, or it may take some work beforehand. And so that's what it's all about. It's about trying to come up with what works for someone. I heard one person one time say that the clients we work with don't ever fail. If there's a failure, the failure is ours because we didn't do or provide the supports necessary to really make it work for the person. So, and that is one of the challenges that we have in that, resources are limited. how much time we have to provide for individuals can be limited. The amount of hours that we get from authorized from regional center or the Department of Rehab can be sometimes can be a challenge. So there can be a number of things that get involved when we're looking at individual employment, but that is a goal. And again, we want to work towards that. And if that's something the client says, we want to have it documented that we're really working in the direction of trying to develop those services and supports that the person is requesting. Do individuals have choice to receive related personal services in the community rather than at a site? And again, we're trying to move away from site-based programming. The old model of having a bus come to your home in the morning, you get on the bus, go to a site, spend the day at the site. At the end of the day, you get back on the bus, you go home, and your day was pretty much in a segregated site. The only other people there were other clients or staff, and the activities were all done sort of inclusively within the program. Maybe going out for outings now and then, but the majority of the time spent site based. So we want to move away from that. We want to go towards preferences and abilities to the same degree as individuals not receiving regional center services. Again, we want to try to find services that we can provide people that don't require, the extra support that anyone in the community is able to do. Do individuals have access to transportation options? That's a tough one here in Greater Bakersfield. It's even tougher in our outlying communities where there's very limited transportation opportunities that other than through family care providers, day programs, etc. So we really want to try to develop family, friends, volunteer organizations to promote the ease or use of optimized individuals' independence per the individual program plan. I believe I mentioned at one of the webinars that we did, and I can't remember them all, but that we had an individual who moved into a small family home, and the owner of that home and the other residents all went to a specific service on Sunday morning. This new individual who moved into the facility said, "I'm not of that faith, and I would prefer to go to a house of worship of my faith." And so we worked with the local with pastor of that faith, a congregation nearby where the group home was. And we ended up getting a member that would come over and pick up the client in the morning, take them to the service, and then bring them back after the service. So we try to use natural supports in the community to get that person to the services that was their preference and what they desired to do. Do individuals have access to? Okay, again, moving on. The second one is choice of settings. So people should have a choice of where they get their service. The setting service is selected by the individual from among various options, including this non-disabled specific options and an option for a private room in residential settings. Not always possible. There may be, it may be a limited number of vacancies for the specific needs of that individual. And so when the folks from the placement agency, the regional center, are looking at trying to find a residential option for the person, there may not be a lot of choices out there available. But to the extent that there are choices, you want to let the individual make the choice. And if there are choices, as choices become available, you go back to that individual and say, okay, now that a choice is opened up, would you want to take a look at it? And this may be more to your liking. Again, the movement is more towards individuals having their own private room, but that's not always the case. Where you don't have private rooms, having individuals choose who their roommates are can be an important choice that they can make. And if but even that isn't always able to do, because if there's a limited number of resources and the person needs a placement right away, you have to go with what's available. So, but you write it in the plan. that you're now looking towards trying to move the client to a different living arrangement within the home. And as it becomes available, that's the goal that we have for that person. Does the provider have a current regional center individual plan on file for all clients? Now, I know this can sometimes be a challenge. The service coordinators sometimes are a couple months behind in getting the plans out to folks. So if don't be afraid to talk with your service coordinator, find out how long it's going to be to get the plan. Make sure that if you don't have the current plan, that you at least have the document that they wrote up at the time of the meeting that says what's going to be in the plan, so you have something to reference, and in case also an evaluator from licensing or from the regional center quality assurance team comes out, you can say, here, no, we're working off the current plan for this individual. Does everyone's IPP document different options that were considered prior to selection of the service and the current provider? So it's a good idea when you're looking at placing someone in a day activity, a vocational service, a residential setting, to put in their plan that when we were looking for services for Johnny, we explored 3 homes. And we looked at a small family care home, we looked at a mentor type FHA home, and we looked at a group home. And he chose, he preferred to be in a small family setting. So we have that documented, that we indeed gave the person a choice in terms of where they live, and that's their option. The next requirement is the right to be treated well. That's a basic right. We all should be treated well. The setting service ensures individual rights to privacy, dignity, respect, and freedom from coercion and constraints. Now, does the provider inform individuals in a manner that they can understand of their rights, dignity, respect, and freedom from coercion and restraints? I've been out to homes in the past. We have the client rights on the wall, and it's just on the wall. They never necessarily review it with the client, and they don't necessarily talk to people about, wait a minute, these are your rights within this particular setting. Does the provider have a policy and procedure that addresses individual rights of privacy, dignity, respect, and freedom from coercion and constraint? Now, coercion usually is where you sort of convince the client that what you're thinking is best for them is really best for them. Don't you really want to stay in my group home because last month we used your P&I and we bought you a new pair of tennis shoes, and I don't know that other providers would do that, so we're a really good home because we bought you a new pair of tennis shoes. And that's sort of coercive. It's trying to get the client to go along with something that they may or may not like. Restraint can be a couple types of restraints. Restraints can be physical restraints, where you tie somebody down so that they're maybe in a wheelchair, or their hands or feet are somehow held down. There can also be chemical restraints. Sometimes people are put on a lot of medication to control their behavior, and in most cases it only has a limited effect on the behavior. And in many cases, it could be sedating, or it can be create other problems for the individual. So you cannot use, if somebody is in quotes acting out, having some severe behavioral challenges, medication alone as a way to try to calm them down. Does the provider conduct communications, both verbally and written, about the individual's personal information in a manner that ensures privacy and confidentiality? You got to keep all your records locked up, only shown to those people who need to know. If you have a full record on your individual, maybe your DSPs only need to see the plan. So what's going on with the individual plan? Or if they're going to be seeing some of the information about the client's medical challenges, only, for example, if they're taking the client to the doctor's office and you need the medical records to go with the client to the doctor's office. But if there's not a need to know something, then it should be kept private. And also, any discussions about the individual should be also be kept private, and only those people who need to know should be involved in that discussion. Um, does the provider ensure individuals have privacy while using the bathroom and when it assisted in personal care? So people have a right to use the restroom unassisted. Some clients may need assistance with uh, bathing or toileting on an individual basis. And if they do need that personal care, it's done in a way that it's assures as much privacy as can be assured in that particular setting. Other clients, other staff shouldn't be in that area when sort of intimate, private bodily functions are being assisted. Um, do staff communicate with individuals based on their needs and preferences, including alternative methods of communication where needed, i.e., assisted technology, braille, large print? So, are you helping them to get their needs known? Are you assisting them with so if they can't write, if they're uh, have limited verbal skills, have other challenges, are you assisting that person in finding a method that can assist them with communication? Are individuals allowed to dress and groom in a manner that is appropriate to the setting while honoring individual choice and lifestyle preferences? So we want people to be able to dress and groom uh, with privacy and respect. And if I have a particular style, I kind of like my Hawaiian shirts. That's my sort of one of my trademarks, and I like people to respect that and say, okay, well, that's sort of uniquely Jeff, and then are individuals able to visit with others in private? So if somebody comes out to your facility and wants to visit with a individual, can they do so privately? Um, Federal Requirement 3 also says, does the facility ensure that staff is knowledgeable about the capacities, preferences, and interests and needs of the individuals they serve? So your staff should know about the people, and they should know really a lot about their strengths and what they like and what they want to do. I remember years and years ago, back probably in the late 1970s or early 1980s, going out to a home for the first time, and the woman said, "Oh yeah, I have a couple of 3-year-olds." And I said, "A couple of 3-year-olds?" And I went into the bedrooms, and here were 2 men. I said, "No, these are men. These aren't 3-year-olds." And she said, "Well, no, they're functioning 3-year-olds." Well, that certainly wasn't looking at their strengths and capacity. It was, there may be some diagnosis on a piece of paper someplace years ago that said cognitively they had the, learning skills of someone equivalent of the age of 3. But they were never, they hadn't been 3 for many, many years, and really should not have been. It wasn't looking at their strengths and capacities and ability. Um, does the provider impose restrictions regarding access with the service location, inside or outside of for the clients or visitors? In other words, you can't use that part of the house. I remember I was at one facility where they had a house in the back. That's where the clients stayed, and the clients were told, no, you can't come in the main house. You only can do you have to stay in the back house, and you only can stay and use this part of the backyard. You can't use that part of the backyard. And so they're restricted. You can't do that. Does the provider utilize restraints? And then restraints, I said, mean control of the client's behavior or activities through the use of physical or pharmacological. Pharmacological meaning medication, other than postural support. So if somebody's in a wheelchair with cerebral palsy, and because of their muscle contractions or weakness might flop over, a postural support is something that maybe holds them to the chair so they can stay upright. So that is technically it's a restraint because it's holding them, but it's it's done to keep them safe and to keep them upright so they can maintain eye contact, to be engaged in what's going on. So it's a positive support of that person through posture. For providers that utilize restraints, acceptable explanations must be identified. And again, if you're going to be doing anything outside of the ordinary, make sure it's part of the IPP, that the team has looked at it, it's been agreed to by all. It's not something that you did unilaterally. It's not something that you went to the physician, got a written order, and then just implemented and didn't tell anybody or do anything about. It's got to be part of the whole process. It's got to be written into their plan. Um, Acceptable explanations may include identifying policies that require documentation of the use of intervention or restraints in individual program plans, that inform consent prior to the use of restraints has been obtained, or it has been the provider's policy to ensure that individual supports and plans to address behavioral needs are specific to the individual and not the same for everyone. So you can't have one plan that says everybody will be treated this way when it comes to the use of restraint. If you've got maybe more than one client who in your facility has motor issues or postural issues, the plan needs to be written individually to each client so that it deals with the issues of those individuals. Number 4 is independence. The setting service optimizes but does not regiment individuality, autonomy, and independence in making life choices, including daily activities, physical environments, and with whom they interact. Do individuals have input into the choices among daily activities that are based on individual needs and preferences? So when you're sitting down with the people in your day program, with the people in your residential facility, with the people who are in your work program, are you asking them, what is it that you want to do? What okay, uh, Monday of the beginning of the week, what would people like to see happen this week? You know, Wednesday, as a group, we want to all go to lunch. Okay, we'll put that into the schedule. So you should be looking at trying to develop schedules for folks. Do individuals have the ability to control their schedule? Does the provider structure its support so that individuals are able to interact with people they choose to interact with? So am I able to talk with the people that I want to talk with, to be able to meet with the people I want to meet with, to interact in ways that are important to me, both at the home and in the community? And again, we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to be around non-disabled folks as well as other individuals with disabilities. Does the provider structure support so that the individual is able to participate in activities that interest them and correspond with their IPP goals? So do we do things that really work with their IPP? And so that's where we want to focus. That document. I sometimes use the analogy of going to the doctor and getting them to write a prescription, and then you take it to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy will fill it exactly how it's written. Sometimes they may contact the doctor's office and say, well, there's a generic availability rather than the brand name or whatever, but it gets written. If it says 30 milligrams, it gets written as 30 milligrams, and it's filled as 30 milligrams. If it says 3 times a day, it gets written as and filled as 33 doses of that a day. So that's what we want to do with the IPP. It's almost like a prescription. What it says in there is what we should be filling. Can individuals choose to spend time, including dining alone or in private areas? So could clients have time to themselves, including eating dinner on their own? Right? I kind of like family dinner in my house, but once in a while, my one son says, I want to go just eat in my room. Is that okay? And so, Yeah, you can do that. Does the provider support individuals' autonomy to make personal decisions such as practicing religion and voting? And again, clients should be able to go to the uh, church, synagogue, mosque of their choosing, not to the one that the provider wants to go to, and also to vote and to vote for the candidate of their choice, not the candidate of the provider's choosing. Um, okay, number five, the setting services facility choice. Excuse me, I'm tired this afternoon. Individual choice regarding services and supports and who provides them. Okay, does does the spoken does the provider support individuals in choosing which staff provide their care? For example, gender or language spoken. Does the provider have a complaint grievance policy for individuals? So if somebody has uh, a complaint about something that's going on in your facility, can they talk to you about it? Can they? Do they need to go to the owner? Do they? How does somebody get that resolved? Do they have to put it in writing, or can they just come in and informally share with you what their concern is? Do individuals have opportunities to modify their service or schedule and or voice their concerns in a manner and timing of their choosing and consistent with their communication abilities and preferences? In other words, do people can people talk, share in a way that they can share? Uh, if an individual are of retirement age, yay, are they offered a choice to retire from a day or work program? Not everybody has to work. Not everybody has to go to a program. So if somebody wants to stay at home, be involved with a senior center, or do something other than what our traditional service models have for them, they have a right to do that. Um, Now, residential. This now 6 through 9 are for specifically for residential facilities. Um, the federal law requires that there be a residential agreement, and the unit or dwelling is specifically phys- physical place that can be owned, rented, or occupied under a legal enforceable agreement by the individual receiving services, and the individual has a minimum the same responsibility and protections from eviction that tenants have under landlord tenant law in the state. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie, but for right now, they've agreed to accept the regional center admissions agreement for clients living in residential settings.
Yes, so that one right now is appropriate, although we do also recommend our providers to create their own missions residential agreement, as you guys could detail a little bit more specifics of what your service can provide individuals. I've seen providers include um, the next federal requirement, which is the ability to have lockable doors included on that, and a little bit of description of what responsibilities are for decorating. If they have the ability to paint their bedrooms, they can include that on that agreement there.
Now, is there still a statewide task force working on a updated admissions agreement?
Yes, so currently there is a task force in place that is trying to update the current residential agreements for all the regional centers to be a little bit more uniform throughout the 21 regional centers.
Okay,
So
so we may be seeing something on that, so stay tuned. But for right now, your current regional center admissions agreement makes you in compliance with this standard. Um, the next one is privacy. Um, each individual has privacy in her sleeping or living unit. Uh, Units have entry door lockable by the individual, with only appropriate staff having keys to the doors as needed. So you want to have locks on the doors, the key that the client has, key that's only those staff that need to have. Now I've seen some innovative stuff that some facilities have used in this area. For example, some have used gone to keypad. like so a 4-digit number that gets entered into the pad and that unlocks the door. Uh, One facility I ran across actually went to like your iPhone, where they have a finger. You put your finger on it, and it senses your fingerprint and opens the door to the room. So it's a lockable door. It doesn't necessarily have to be a key, but it has to be something that and keys. One provider told me the client's losing the keys all the time. So that's a challenge. So maybe one of the other ways of doing it might be more better for the individuals in your home. But they do have to have that ability to have a lockable room. Individual sharing units have a choice of roommates in the setting. So again, wherever possible. Now, sometimes people have been roommates for a number of years. They didn't get to choose. They haven't chose. It's always been that way. But as openings come up, if the people should be have the right to choose to change the roommate. If somebody says, I don't want to live with this person, they should be able to go back to the regional center and say, hey, wait a minute, I want to look at some other residential options because I'm not happy with this roommate situation. So people have a right to make that decision. Individuals have freedom to furnish and decorate their sleeping or living units with the lease or within the lease or the other agreement. So if it talks about holes on the walls or those sort of things, as long as it's consistent with the lease agreement, but the client should be able to decorate their room. It's their room. They should be able to have the things that they want to have in the room. The individuals have a choice regarding roommates or private accommodations. In regards to this question above, not every room has to be provided the option of a private room, but individuals must have a choice of who they share the room with. Do individuals have the option to change roommates if desired? Yes, if it's available. Do individuals have the option to furnish and decorate their sleeping and living units in a manner that is basic on their preference with their own personal items? Yeah, had a situation a number of years ago where a client wanted to put up some pretty risque, sexualized posters in his room. And the roommates, I mean, and the provider said, "I know I'm a very religious, pious person, very moral. This is not my belief to allow, this sort of poster in my home." Well, it's the client's room. They had a choice, and if it was private, their area, and they weren't really offending anybody, they would have the right to do that, even though it may not be consistent with what the provider's own personal beliefs are. Um, do individuals have the ability to lock their bedroom door when they choose? Okay. Are policies in place to ensure only necessary and appropriate staff have access to the bedroom? And there are protocols to ensure that they are followed. So, do you have it written in writing ways to establish that? Wait a minute, only these staff members can go into the room, and it has to be at the client's okay. If the client's home, the client has to agree to allow them to come into their room. Um, Federal requirement 8, schedule and access to food. And this is one that's become a bit of a challenge for a number of care homes. Individuals have the freedom and support to control their own schedule and activities and to have access to food at any time. Do individuals have access to food at any time? Does the home allow individuals to set their own daily schedules? Do individuals have full access to the common area in the home, such as kitchen, dining area, laundry, and comfortable seating in the shared area? Now, I had a client a number of years ago who had a condition called Prader-Willi syndrome. Prader-Willi syndrome, they can oftentimes have pica behavior. They'll eat anything, and non-edible stuff, edible stuff. One client got into laundry soap one time. So for that individual, there would need to be restrictions about the kitchen and certain areas and when they could eat and things. And again, that needs to be written into the plan, and it needs to be very specific as to why, for this individual, a lesser restrictive environment won't work. and why the rule which says that they have the right to this isn't in this person's health and safety interest to be allowed. Um, do individuals have access to public transportation? We've talked about that before. When none is available, that other resources is available to them to access the broader community at the same degree that other individuals do. So, how, if somebody wants to get someplace, how do we get them there? Basically, oops. 9. Can individuals go with visitors outside the home, such as a meal or shopping, or or a long visit outside the home, such as a holiday or weekend? Now, yes, they do have the right to do that. Kind of a little bit tricky because if you're a licensed home and you have a responsibility to provide care and supervision for that individual, and let's say taking, I'm a resident in your home and I took the city bus home from my program during that day or from my job, and I meet this guy on the, or this young lady on the, and she says, well, come with me, come over to my place, we'll have fun. And you don't know that person, that the client for the most part hasn't really known that person. you know, yes, indeed, people have a right to make bad choices, but you also have a responsibility to provide care and supervision. And when is it appropriate to say no, that this is not, yes, you have a right to visitors, you have a right to people outside the home, etc., but this particular situation's not really consistent with that. And I keep coming back to it, but the IPP. So if you have somebody who doesn't have a really good, I call it stranger danger, or ability to sort of socially sort out what's appropriate or not sort out what's appropriate, but it needs to be written into their plan that wait, wait a minute, if Johnny just met someone on city transportation, the ability to utilize go off with that person, it needs to be reviewed by the team before it occurs. And then finally, the last one is the federal requirement 10 accessibility, which again applies to all HCBS waiver type facilities. Federal requirement 10, the setting is physically accessible to individuals. So they can move around, they can get to where they need to go within the setting. Do individuals have the freedom to move about inside and outside the home, including bathrooms, bedrooms, and common spaces? And the same thing applies for day services. Does the client have the ability to move throughout the program? There's no barriers, stairs, um, uh, ramps that are not accessible, doorways that aren't wide enough, so that, or toilets that aren't don't have grab bars or other things necessary for someone who needs that extra help to use. So we want to make sure that our facilities are indeed accessible to all the individuals. This question also refers to the presence of grab bars, seats in bathrooms, ramps for wheelchairs, etc. If an individual who needs those supports are currently being served in the setting, uh, are appliances and furniture accessible to everybody? So can somebody get to chairs? Can they get to appliances? If someone wants to use the microwave because they have their access to food, can they get to the microwave? Is it some place where, is it up high, like built into the fan and vent up above, so that somebody in a wheelchair might not be able to access it? So we need to look at the accessibility. If it's not accessible, what are we doing to either make it accessible, or what have we written into that person's plan specific to how we're going to make sure that they have access to that particular appliance? Okay, those are the 10 rules. We went through them fairly quickly. We had a small audience today, so I sort of did it a little faster than maybe usual. But are there any questions or anything that anybody would like to share?
I just would like to thank you, Jeffrey, for this presentation. It is a great overview of the 10 federal requirements and how you guys could utilize these questions within it to really see how the services are being delivered in your home. If at any point one of these questions you see you might have a no response, you might want to try to figure out, is there a way we could turn that no into a yes to provide that service to our individuals served? And I know this presentation was very much also to help our individuals understand the presentation um, of what HCPS is as well. So I really hope this information does help provide that perspective for our individuals and their families.
Now, this will be offered again tonight at 6 p.m. in Spanish and tomorrow at 6 p.m. That'll be the basically the end of the milestones for the first year of the project. So we're just wrapping up the first year of the project. We will be going into the second year of our project starting October 1st. And that will be some work with the quality. I mean, the Council on Quality and Leadership tools, and we're going to be using some other material so that we're going to actually be doing some hands-on training for providers, and we're also going to start going out to homes and seeing how we can assist people on an individual basis. So stay tuned. We'll be working with you more in the near future. Any other questions? And if you want continuing ed credit for this class, please send Irene a one or two paragraph email on what you learned today, and you will get 1 hour of CEUs for this course. All right. Well, thank you for your time today. Bye
Thank you,
now.
Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thank you.